So I think maybe around 6 months back, Brady gave me a call from the conference and said, Charlie, you guys have a lot of data. You guys have a lot of data in consumers because we manage 90,000 different enterprise databases. And so he asked me, have you done anything cool with mobile technology where when you start to add mobile data with your big consumer data, what do you find? So I'm going to talk to you about a very simple mobile application we built. It was a very simple need that we had with retail merchants. And when we combined the mobile data, and the mobile data introduced 2 data points of time and location. So we could actually understand what consumers are doing at a specific time, at a specific location. And when we combined that with our big consumer databases, quite a bit of interesting insights came out. And in the process, we were able to help retailers better take data and analytics and sort of improve their value proposition and experience to consumers. To give you a little context, we have 2 sides of our business. One side of the business manages 90,000 enterprise databases, very large databases. I mean, 3 clients alone of the 90,000 between Borders Rewards, AARP's member database, and Dell's customer database, that alone is in excess of 100 million consumers. So huge databases on one side. The other side of the and in that side, by the way, rewards programs, loyalty programs, shopping programs that we build and manage. The flip side is 30,000 merchant partners, online partners, physical store partners, and we do a ton of work to help them drive customers and different consumers to come and shop in their stores, online sites, take ad dollars, and basically redirect it to lower price points for targeted consumer segments. So I'm going to take you through a program we run typically every quarter now, but we used to run thousands of these at an individual store. We call them VIP shopping nights. So a VIP shopping night, they're all physical stores. A store will close down its store, not open to the public. It could be 5 to 9, 6 to 8, and you have to be in a physical guest list to be able to get in. So you have to sign up online. You go to these stores. In this case, there's 2 locations, Soho, as well as Meatpacking. Those of you from New York City know that almost all the best fashion brands are there. So we're talking 43 stores, 2 neighborhoods, 1 night only from 5 to 9 o'clock. 108,000 people RSVP to go to this event. 80% of these consumers were new shoppers to each of these merchants. And this is data we got back working with the merchants. 20% are high-income shoppers. So I'm going to touch on that point quite a bit more because to better help retail merchants succeed in their business, we really help them understand how to draw in and add value to high-income shoppers. 3 to 7 times increase in average sales in a single night. So a typical night, and they looked at Christmas sales, the best night ever of sales. This single event drove 3 to 7 times increase in sales for most merchants that ran this event. 39% increase in AOS, AOS being average order size. So you're seeing people coming to this event at this time just spending more. Brands you're seeing on there, Hugo Boss, Helmut Lang, Theory, Vince, I mean, some of the best brands out there. So 43 all physical stores. So when we ran these events over the years, until last year, September, we ran these events with physical guest lists. So these are electronic lists that we would give the merchant. It just has the individual's first name, last name, checking in. You have to be on the list to go in the store. You cannot get in. And there were reams of papers that were printed out, and stores would go there and try to check off if you're on the list, because you can't get in the store unless you're on this guest list. So we built a very simple application. It was built on an iPad. You could bump your phone to check in, or you could just go in, and the stores each had an iPad checking people in. And what was interesting was the real-time analytics tool we built. The stores could start to see a prediction of what the final night sales were just based on check-ins, but just a lot of feedback that came from the event itself simply based on this very simple iPad application. The funniest thing was every merchant asked, can I buy this? I run thousands, if not hundreds of events through the course of a year, and we have these unwieldy paper guest lists. This iPad application was pretty awesome. Could we buy the app? And the app wasn't for sale, but we do it for every merchant we work with. As we look through, just other features in the iPad, you can see where the consumers who have downloaded an equivalent version from the consumer side, kind of where consumers are traveling and traversing. Just really cool stuff. I think it was just kind of more bells and whistles that the engineers wanted to build. But for the most part, a very simple iPad application to manage a guest list. So as we start connecting, and the connection of the mobile data, which is time and location, along with decades of consumer databases, we started to see a lot of interesting insights. First, for this event that was in Manhattan in New York City, 70% of the shoppers actually came from New York City. They either worked in or they lived in New York City. but 30% came from surrounding areas, as far as Philly. And Philly is 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, depending on traffic from New York City. It was impressive to see where people were coming from. The data gets more and more interesting as we dive deeper. And this was, by the way, I'm taking slides out of a post-event analysis we did sitting with merchant partners. So looking at the RSVP, so people who RSVP versus checked in to the event itself. And this is a physical check-in to go into the store to shop. 2-to-1 ratio of women to men. So not surprising, more women showed up than men, and women just visited 4 stores on average versus men visited 3 stores. So once again, we never thought the iPad application would start to produce such interesting insights, but it starts to build from here. We started to take a look, by store. This is Soho, so the blue represents men checking in, the red represents women checking in. Even, male-oriented stores, I think there's one in meatpacking, the next slide, scoop men. Women still always showed up, but there are definitely stores that only women went, men didn't go. So there's a big distinction between how women and men shop, but women were present everywhere. And we've always found that when we run physical store events, men buy more typically when there's a female with them shopping. So we try to always get a guy to bring a guest, typically encouraged to be female, and that always results in more sales. Store traffic by time. So most stores, have to staff the store. They bring staff sometimes from around the country just because there's a rush of customers coming in or potential, customers coming in. 6 to basically 8:30. Instead of running the full 4 hours from 5 to 9, 6 to 8:30, 80% of the traffic came in. If you wanted to run only to 8 o'clock, you could still capture around 75% of the traffic. So worst case, simple insights, but it helps stores understand when people needed to be on as a sales rep at the store. Now, we went deeper and deeper, and we found more and more insights coming out. So for one, men came later. Men came at the tail end of the event, and you're looking at blue, which is men. Women came earlier. So just shopping patterns by men and women. We looked at also average time spent in a store. Average time spent in a store, women just shop longer. So once again, I don't think these are surprising insights, but what's nice is we were able to tie specific data from 100,000 RSVPs of 43 stores. High-income shopper analysis. Now, this is where it starts to get a little more interesting. In commerce, if you want to become number one, there's not an 80-20 rule. It's a 95-5 rule. And this is something that we've seen in decades of running shopping platforms and businesses. Affluent women, women who make $250 or more, or household incomes of $250 and more, drive the majority of shopping. And that's 5%. However, that drives the majority of shopping. So in the internet space that we compete in, the mobile space we compete in, being number one is always key. If you want to be number one, you need to win the affluent women. Or else, at best, you're going to be number 2. So the majority, as in more than 50%, comes from this 5%. So we went through and said, OK, how do we do in drawing affluent women into these stores? So $250 and more, in the United States, 0.5% would be affluent women. 0.5%. In New York City, it's 1 in 50, which is, if I do my math right, I think that's 1%. NextJump's network of databases, of our consumer databases, 1 in 11, so 9%. In the shopping event itself, it drew 20%, or 1 in 5 of the 100,000 shoppers that RSVP'd were affluent women. So it's a pretty important stat to show of what happened. We dove in deeper, and we found that, on average, high-income women spent more time in each store. They didn't go to as many stores, but they spent more time naturally spending more in the process. And then, so I took a lot of slides out just so I can kind of get through this, but competitive benchmarking. So remove the merchant name here, but for every merchant, they always want to know, how do I fare against people I compete with? So masking the individual identity of merchants, pulling the top 3, top 6, how do you benchmark against the competition? So benchmarking, we provide 5 different ways to benchmark. One is, how did you do overall in sales relative to everybody else? Actual transaction sales. High-income traffic analysis. Whether you are a low-price merchant or a high-price merchant. High-income traffic by product grouping. Some sell casual clothing, workwear, other groups. Do you sell to men, women, or both? Traffic pattern analysis. So we'll take you through 5 different competitive insights we gave. So this is Merchant X, just to mask the identity. They made an offer, so everyone who went, you get champagne, cocktails, and you get some type of value-added offering, whether it is a price reduction, gift with purchase for being there. Compared to the median, where you ranked in RSVPs and check-ins and sales, so the green dot represents where this merchant is. We look closer at the high-income traffic analysis, saying for high-income overall attendance, against the group average, your score against the group leader, the top 3 within the group, in this case, the low price point merchant. How'd you fare? It's always nice to know how you're doing relative to everybody else. We went further, and we also looked at casual wear, just same analysis, all different ways to cut the data. We take a look, at whether you sell to men, women, or both. How'd you do against a group leader, against a group average, exactly where you landed. Once again, always looking at high-income overall attendance, high-income women versus high-income men. I think the second line probably being the most important of the mix. We then also went through and said, how about traffic patterns? When a consumer went to store X, where did they go afterwards? And this was pretty interesting because you can see the pattern of check-ins that evening and how people were traveling and traversing from store to store. And the most interesting insight that came out for us as a business was when we started creating this map, this merchant map of how people were traversing between stores, we found that if we wanted to market this event, as in we're marketing this to millions of consumers, we don't need to talk about 43 merchants. 43 different stores. It came down to 6 merchants, 3 to 6 merchants. Those were the origination merchants for almost everyone shopping that evening, meaning they start at that merchant and then they branch out. The spillover impact of that branch out traffic is what everyone benefited from. So this helped tremendously for our sales team to say, sign up those 6 merchants. Because if you sign those 6 merchants and you market them, everyone else will spill over into the other 37 plus stores around there. So we actually have an event right now about to run, if I'm not mistaken, next week in Chicago, doing a similar thing with Chicago Tribune. Very cool data that came out in the process here. I just have one more slide, which is just look out for a mobile app that our teams are building. It's not called E2A. It's a project name internally. It's launching in June. And it's a recommendation system, but built in with social rewards. So we built this currency called Wow Points. It's one of the largest merchant coalition currencies. This currency is good to use. It's 100 points equals $1, but it's as good as cash. You can literally fund healthcare, mutual funds, do all kinds of crazy stuff. But when you provide a helpful tip, it can be a shopping tip, it can be a fitness tip, a nutrition tip. You get rewarded by your family, close friends, coworkers, Facebook friends, or the world. This is an application that's launching literally, I think, in Chicago in June to start, and then we'll go nationwide. So please look out for it, and thank you very much.